Hi friends, today I take a new topic about fascia and muscles of back. Here I take the fascia of the back, superficial muscles and deep muscles. In fascia, there is two terms we need to learn: superficial fascia and thoracolumbar fascia. Superficial muscles. Five muscles are we needs to learn: trapezius, latissimus dorsi, rhomboid muscle, levator scapulae, serratus posterior muscles. In deep muscles, Splenius muscles, Erector spinae, Transversospinalis, interspinals, intertransversarii. Fascia of back. First, superficial fascia is underdeveloped and it merges with the dermal adipose. The proper fascia is thin. It covers the superficial muscles, that is trapezius, latissimus dorsi, and forms their sheath. In the upper part, the fascia is denser and is called the nuchal fascia. Second one is thoracolumbar fascia. The fascia is present in the lumbar region and comprised of two layers, superficial and deep. The superficial or posterior layer merges with the upper neurons of latissimus dorsi. It is located behind the erector spinae. The deep anterior layer lies in the front of erector spinae. It inserts into 12th rib above, attaches to iliac crest below, and to the transverse process of lumbar vertebrae medially. Along the lateral border of erector spinae, both layers of thoracolumbar fascia merge, forming a fibrous sheath for this muscle. Then the superficial muscles of back, first group, include muscle attached to upper limb. We need to make just a quote here. Take latest lover romantically in hand. Take the first letter T for trapezius, then L for latissimus, and L for levator scapulae, and rhomboid muscles in hand. That means in upper limb. That means in hand. Take latest lover romantically in hand. And next one is we need to study the first muscle, the trapezius. The origin is from the superior nuchal line, occipital protuberance, ligamentum nuchae, and spinous process of all thoracic vertebrae. Here we can see the ligamentum superior nuchal line and occipital protuberance. Here we can see clearly, and spinous process of all vertebrae. Here insertion is the outer third of clavicle, acromion, and spine of scapulae. Here we can see the shoulder blade, that means scapulae. Insert into here, insert into here. The trapezius is a flat triangular muscle and whose base is facing the spinous process of vertebrae. Here is the base. And it resides in the upper part of the back and the occiput. The right and left trapezius muscles together form a trapezoid. Here is the trapezoid. This totally known as trapezoid. And the upper muscle fibers extend downward. The middle fibers are oriented horizontally, and the lower fibers run upward. Here, lower one upward, horizontal, and it will downwards. Fibers will downwards. At the level of lower cervical and upper thoracic vertebrae, there is a well distinguished broad beginning part of the tendon of the trapezius in the form of tendinous mirror, and the action Action of these muscles are the upward fibers pull the shoulder girdle upward here, and while the lower fibers will downward, and both muscles contract, they draw the shoulder blade towards each other. When the shoulder blade is fixed, the trapezius draws the head and neck backward. When the muscle contracts on one side, it rotates the face towards the opposite side. Okay, opposite side. When the muscle contracts one side, it rotates the face towards the opposite side. And the nerves are C3 and C4, accessory nerve, 11th cranial nerve, and cervical plexus, C3 and C4. And next one is Latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi is the origin is spinous process of 6 lower thoracic and all lumbar vertebrae, and the median sacral crest and posterior portion of iliac crest and the lower 3-4 ribs. Here we can see the insertion is the crest of lesser tubercle of humerus. Here we can see the crest of lesser tubercle. Here is the median sacral crest. Okay, the latissimus dorsi is a broad and flat muscle which envelops the lower portion of the back. The upper part of the latissimus dorsi is covered by trapezius in its lower part near the origin, and the muscle has a wide aponeurosis here, which merges with a superior layer of thoracolumbar fascia. On both sides, this area resembles a wide tendinous rhomboid. We can see a rhomboid shape here. We can see a aponeurosis rhomboid here. The latissimus dorsi fibers ascending from the bottom and extending laterally become a narrow but thick tendon near its attachment to the humerus. The action is muscle pulls the arm backward and medially and backward, and rotating the shoulder in the midline, lowers the raise the arm. When the arm is fixed, it pulls the trunk towards the arms, as in exercise in pull bar crawling. Here we can see his latissimus dorsi muscle. And next muscle is rhomboid major and minor. The origin of rhomboid minor is spinous process of lower 2 cervical vertebrae, and rhomboid major upper 4 thoracic vertebrae. The insertion is the medial border of scapula. Both muscles run obliquely. Here, both muscles runs obliquely and often merge with each other. The muscles lie directly beneath the trapezius. The action: the muscle pulls the shoulder blade towards the midline, elevating them. The nerve supply are C4 and C5. Dorsal scapular nerve. The next one is levator scapulae. The origin of levator scapulae is the transverse process of upper 4 cervical vertebra, and insertion is the superior angle of the scapula. Here we can see the muscle resides beneath the sternocleidomastoid and trapezius. It resembles a massive bundle and which descends down towards the shoulder blade. that is scapula. Action, it elevates the shoulder blade. It elevates the shoulder blade. When the scapula is fixed, the levator scapula pulls the neck backward. When the scapula is fixed, the levator scapula pulls the neck backward. The nerve supply are dorsal scapular nerve C4 and C5 here, and superficial muscles second group, trunk muscles of ventral origin, which migrate to the back and reside deeper. Serratus, posterior, superior and inferior muscle. They attach to ribs. First we need to study the serratus, posterior, superior muscle. Inferior here, posterior, superior. The origin is the spinous process of the lower two cervical and upper two thoracic vertebrae, and insertion is the four slips attached to the second to fifth rib. We can look here, fifth rib, and the muscle resembles a thin semitendinous plate which resides beneath the rhomboid muscles. Action is helps to elevate the ribs, and the nerve supply are intercostal nerves T1 and T4. Then serratus posterior inferior muscle here. The origin is the spinous process of lower two thoracic and upper two lumbar vertebrae. Insertion is the four slips attached to the lower four ribs. Let's look. Upper four ribs. Insertion four slips attached to the lower four ribs. The muscle resembles thin muscular tendinous plate which lie beneath the latissimus dorsi and merge with the thoracolumbar fascia. Action is it helps to pull the ribs downward. Nerve supply are intercostal nerves T9 and T12. The deep muscles of back. First one is Splenius capitis and Splenius cervicis. The origin is the spinous process of the lower 5 cervical and upper 6 thoracic vertebrae. Insertion is the insertion of Splenius cervicis is attached to the transverse process of second and third cervical vertebrae. The insertion of Splenius capitis is the mastoid process of temporal bone and the superior nuchal line, and the action is here we can see Splenius capitis here and Splenius cervicis here. Both muscles fuse together near their origin, and their fibers run upwards and laterally and separate near the points of incision. Attaching to different bone structures, the muscles lie deeper than the trapezius and serratus superior posterior. On the occiput, the upper borders of the right and left splenius capitis separates the right angle, forming a triangular area. We can see here. On the occiput, the upper borders of right and left Splenius capitis separate a right angled triangle here, where the semispinalis capitis resides. Here is the semispinalis capitis, and the action is when contracted on one side, the muscle rotates the head and neck to the corresponding side here, and when muscles contract on both sides, they pull the head and neck backwards. The nerve supply are posterior rami of cervical spinal nerves C3 and C8. Next we can study the erector spinae. Erector spinae. The origin of erector spinae is the uh, from the major portion is from originate from the dorsal surface of sacrum, iliac crest, spinous process of lumbar vertebrae and thoracolumbar fascia. Let's look the erector spinae. If erector spine is a complex system, it is divided into three: the spinalis muscle, longissimus muscle, and iliocostalis muscle. And the erector spine is the strongest muscle of the back. It extends upward from its origin. Here be the origin, and it extends upward and lies along the entire length of spine, reaching the skull. Here it reaches here. The muscle is enveloped by osteofibrous sheath. The anterior wall of this sheath is formed by the vertebral column together with the deep muscles and the deep layer of the thoracolumbar fascia. The posterior wall is represented by superficial layer of the same fascia. Erector spinae is a complex system of numerous muscle and tendinous bundles which attach to the ribs, transverse and spinous process of the vertebrae all along the spine as well as to the base of the skull. A uniform muscle mass appears only in the lumbar region. At the level of upper lumbar process, the muscle split into three parts. Here, iliocostalis, longissimus, and spinalis. Iliocostalis is resides laterally to the other muscles, and its fibers attached to the ribs. And transverse process of cervical vertebrae from 7 to 6. Along its entire length, the iliocostalis separates into the iliocostalis lumborum, thoracis, and cervicis. Here be the lumborum, and here be the iliocostalis thoracis. Here be the iliocostalis cervicis, and longissimus. Next, longissimus lies medially from the former muscle, that means iliocostalis. Its fibers insert into the transverse process of all thoracic and cervical vertebrae and mastoid process as well as into the ribs. Along its entire length, the muscles separate into longissimus thoracic, here, longissimus thoracic here, and cervicis and capitis. In spinalis, here resides most medially. It is the weakest muscle. Its fibers insert into the spinous process of thoracic and cervical vertebrae. Along its entire length, the muscle divides into spinalis thoracic here, and spinalic cervis here, and capitis here. And the action of erector spinae is it is a powerful extensor. It's a powerful extensor. When it is contract on both sides, maintain the body in vertical position. When contracted in one side, it bends the trunk into one side. And the nerves are posterior rami of spinal nerves. Next one is Transversospinalis. The origin is transverse process of vertebrae. We can see here. The insertion is the spinous process as well as the superior and inferior nuchal lines and occipital bone. The transversospinalis consists of numerous oblique muscle fibers which extend from the transverse process to the spinous process. The muscle fibers are arranged in three layers, giving rise to semispinalis, and multifidus. Here, multifidus. Here is the semispinalis, and here is multifidus, and here is the rotators. Three layers. It gives rise of three layers. And the action is extend and rotate the vertebral column and nerves, posterior rami of spinal nerves. We just look into semispinalis, the insertion of semispinalis. It comprises of superficial long fibers. It is in the superficial, and which extends over 5 to 6. Here we can just semispinalis from the transverse process to spinous process. It extends over 5 to 6 vertebrae, and along its entire length, the muscle separates into semispinalis thoracic, cervix, and capitis. Multifidus. Next one is multifidus. It is the intermediate layer and extend over 2 to 4 vertebrae running along the entire length of spine. And rotators, here we can see the rotators. It is the deepest one, and they are short fibers, cross over one vertebrae or extend toward the vertebrae situated directly above. And along their entire length, the muscles separate into rotators, cervices, thoracic, and lumborum. Action. The action is the transversospinalis muscle extends and rotates the vertebral column. Nerve supplies the posterior rami spinal nerves. Next one is interspinals. Origin is the spinous process. Insertion is the spinous process of adjacent vertebrae. Action is the extension of vertebral column. Nerve is the posterior rami of spinal nerves. Here, from one spinous process to another spinous process. Here will be the attachment. And the intertransversarii is the last one. Is located between the adjacent transverse process of vertebrae, and action is the bending of vertebral column. Nerves are the posterior rami of spinal nerves. We can see here intertransversarii between adjacent transverse process of vertebrae. They are better developed in cervical and lumbar regions. The interspinals also better developed in cervical and lumbar regions, but interspinals are absent in thoracic region. The intertransversarii is contract. They helps to bend the helps to vertebral column. Intertransversaries helps to bend the vertebral column to the corresponding side. Nerve supply is the posterior rami of spinal nerves, as we already said. And just look into as a whole. We can see trapezius muscle here, and latissimus dorsi here, rhomboid major and rhomboid minor muscle, and here we can see the Splenius capitis. Here is the Levator scapulae muscle. Semispinalis capitis here. Thoracolumbar fascia. Serratus posterior inferior and serratus posterior superior. Okay. Okay friends, I think this video is helpful to you, and please comment and make a subscribe. And if you like this video, please like, and for more updated video click on the bell icon. Thank you friends, bye.